Unfortunately for you, we are going to keep talking about the striker situation until they sort it out. So we'll finish
I
up.
I I don't know anything, Ben. Honestly,
I'm not going to ask you about that. Don't
it's
worry.
okay.
Uh,
I'm still in the dark as everyone else is when it comes to the striker.
all right. So yeah, okay. On that first question, Sesko or Gyökeres, who are Arsenal signing?
Oh yeah.
I'm no. Well, actually, if reports from Germany are to be believed, they might not be signing either. It's been claimed that Hugo Ekitike of Eintracht Frankfurt is now on their radar. And well, you've been saying for the past few weeks that from the outside it seems like Arsenal don't have their number one target, but internally they've had so long to scope out and analyze their options. They must have an idea of the number one target they're going to go for. But if these reports of Ekiteke are to be believed, does that maybe suggest that they still haven't settled on that number one target?
It's so hard to answer, Ben, because I'm just so in the dark about it. I can't believe we're in July now. It's 1st of July, and we're still none the wiser when it comes to the striker. The Ekitike stuff, I struggle to believe that for now. Just because purely Frankfurt have been so insistent that he's going to cost about 100 million euros, about 85 million pounds. So he'd be more expensive than either of the other two. Then I just struggle to see a way that Arsenal would suddenly pivot away from Gyökeres or Sesko and go and spend more money on another striker who hasn't really been at the front of the queue for them. So I struggle to see real sort of genuine legitimacy in those reports at the moment from Germany. I might be proven wrong. We'll have to wait and see on it. But right now, I still feel that Gyökeres and Sesko is going to be one of those two. Um, I just don't. I mean, I just don't see Arsenal suddenly paying 85 million pounds unless Frankfurt massively drop their price tag. And even if they do, I think there's other clubs who've been chasing Ekitike for far longer than Arsenal, who've been in the running for Ekitike for longer than Arsenal. So I struggle to see it. For me, it still feels like it's going to be Sesco Gyökeres. I do, and I've said this before, but I do think the next 2 weeks, I would be stunned if we get to the next end of the next fortnight and we don't know. There's not a clear picture finally on what Arsenal are doing when it comes to the striker because they're back in the pre-season next week. Sort of about I think Wednesday they start to filter back the players who haven't been on international duty and things like that during the summer. Then they go to La Manga for 5 days, and then they come back and they fly pretty much straight away to Singapore after that. Mikel Arteta will be smacking the doors down at London Colney at the moment, saying, "What's going on? Where are we? When is his striker, whoever it's going to be, arriving?" And he will be really ramping up the pressure on those above him now to get this deal done before, especially before they go to Singapore, but ideally before they even go to La Manga. He'll want them in the group as quickly as possible to be ready to start the adjustment that they're going to need. So, I would be so shocked if we get now we're in July if we get at least even a week, but certainly 2 weeks if we don't have a real clear picture of what they're going to do with the striker.
Of course, it's already been a month since the first transfer window opened. It goes by so quickly, doesn't it? And just
Mm.
going back to Ekateke, he had a brilliant record for Frankfurt last season. I think 34 involvements in 48 games. Had a really good season. Didn't do very well at PSG, but really exploded at Frankfurt. But we've seen in the past Bundesliga players moving to England can have mixed success at times. Of course, Omar Marmoush has done well since he moved to City, but players like Timo Werner didn't hit the heights. Kai Havertz, he's been a good servant to Arsenal, but he's never really, again, hit the heights that he showed in his final Bundesliga season. So hypothetically, if Arsenal did move for Ekiteke, paid that, I think, £85 million, would it be a concern of yours, given that how some other players have not really performed in the Prem after doing it in the Bundesliga?
Yeah, I think but there's a concern over any sort of signing, especially a big money signing, isn't it? That it's not going to work out. So there would be concern, but you would just hope that the recruitment department, whoever they end up signing, whether it be Ekitike or Sesko, who'd also be coming from Germany if it's them, you'd hope the recruitment department have done enough work on it that they are very confident that he will be able to adapt. And it might take some time. You'd expect it would take some time for any player, especially a young player like Ekitike or Sesko, to come over here. But yeah, I mean, they'd have put so much work and analysis into this and all the data. I'm sure they'd be very confident in whoever it is that they do bring in would hit the ground running. Well, not hit the ground running, but would ultimately prove to be a success in the Premier League. I like what Ekitike has. I like his attributes. Um, the pace, the ability to sort of run in behind as well. Kind of, he obviously loves Thierry Henry. Henry is one of his idols, or is his idol, and he kind of plays in a similar way in terms of drifting in from out wide, getting into the central areas. So I do like what he brings. But yeah, whoever it is who ends up doing it, I'm sure I'd just back the recruitment team in this situation. If they think they're the guy, then fingers crossed they would come over here and they wouldn't be another Timo Werner.
Absolutely. And yeah, just finishing up. So we know that there has been no movement at all on the Arsenal front with Sesko or Gyökeres, but the Gyökeres situation overall seems to be getting a bit messy. Seems like there's been claims that he might go on strike or just not go back to Sporting pre-season. He's really trying to force this exit from the club. Seems like he's on his knees begging for a move to Arsenal, but Sporting is still holding firm on that price, and he might be taking quite drastic measures to try to get out. Seems like the relationship between the club and his agents, could be breaking down. And the fact that he is going to such, or apparently going to such, great lengths to try to force an exit, would that be a personality red flag for you if he did join Arsenal?
It's an interesting one. I spoke about this before, and people quite rightly pointed out it was kind of a similar situation with Trossard, and when he forced his way out of Brighton almost, and Arsenal signed him, and Trossard's been a model professional since he's arrived at Arsenal. So um, it's tough to look at it as a definite red flag. I think maybe clubs would look at it and be a little bit concerned, but he obviously feels that he's been given promises that haven't been kept. And he feels like he's done everything he possibly could for Sporting, I imagine. Sitting there saying, look, I've scored 100 goals for you in 2 seasons, pretty much. I've won you 2 trophies, 2 titles. You've promised me this. And now you've backed out on a promise, and I could end up missing out on, a move that I'm never going to get again. So, he obviously feels pretty badly treated by them. So I don't know. It is one that you look at and think you'd hate that if that was your player doing that, acting like that at your club. It's like, yes, you haven't got to move, but don't throw your toys out the pram. Go back, be professional. You signed a contract. You're getting paid well. Come and do your job. So you would be a bit, if you're a Sporting fan, I'm sure you'd feel pretty disappointed in that. But I wouldn't look at it massively as a red flag right now, as a signing club anyway. I think I'd look at it as a player who feels like he's been badly treated, who just desperately wants his big move. And it could well be like a Trossard situation. Aubameyang kind of did it as well when he left Dortmund as well, didn't he? He at 28, he wanted that big move, and Gyökeres isn't that far off age-wise. So, no, I wouldn't look at it majorly as a red flag, but it is definitely a sort of point of debate.